Wang Bing was every high school girl's dream man, wrapped in a GPA of 4.0 and a face sculpted by the anime gods themselves. He wasn't just smart, he was heartbreak material with a perfect jawline. The kind of guy that walked down the hallway and made people forget algebra existed. Every girl wanted to be in his orbit, but he didn't give a damn. Why? Because his heart had been hijacked by the Queen of the Garden, the school's ultimate goddess, a walking fairy tale wrapped in lip gloss and danger. To the outside world, he looked like the luckiest bastard alive. But behind that swoon-worthy smile was a broke boy fighting inflation, student life, and the black hole called dating expenses. Because apparently, in this cursed reality, love isn't blind, it's just really expensive. This poor legend was out here doing the capitalist pilgrimage, knocking on doors, begging businesses for any job, even the ones that require selling your soul for minimum wage. Sure, he had killer grades, but his wallet was allergic to money. He wasn't just chasing cash, he was chasing happiness for a girl who probably didn't even know how many zeros were in his bank balance. And let's be real, no matter how hard you hustle, in today's world, one dinner date can financially ruin you faster than a zombie bite in a survival game. Men will die for someone who barely remembers their birthday, while women dress up for the guy who left them on read 3 weeks ago. But our boy had something most didn't. Brains, gaming skills, and just enough delusion to think life was fair. Wang Bing logged into his latest obsession, a mysterious game called Post-Apocalypse. It didn't just come with flashy graphics and monsters, no, it came with a warning label, entering might kill you. If you die for real. No respawns, no mommy to cry to. Most sane people would throw their computer out the window, but Wang, he smiled. Because apparently near-death experiences are his kink. What really sold him? The cash prize. The longer he survived in-game, the bigger the payout. Suddenly, death sounded like a great investment strategy. After some dramatic soul searching, like 2 minutes of internal screaming, he pressed start game like it was a button to a better life. The screen flared up like a prophecy being fulfilled, telling him he'd made the right choice. Honestly, it felt like a cult initiation. Before diving in, the system dropped a fat rule book on his face. How to drag items from the real world into the digital hellscape, what to avoid, how not to die in 5 minutes, that sort of thing. Wang Bing's eyes lit up like a child in a candy store. If that store was full of death traps and flesh-eating corpses, he only had 4 hours to prep before showtime, but his wallet looked like it had been through 10 world wars and a breakup. Turns out, last week's romantic dinner with his princess drained him faster than his phone on the 1%. So now, the only thing he could do was the most humiliating power move, ask his boys for money. In this reality, gaming isn't a hobby, it's a religion. Every street corner had gamers worshipping their monitors like it was Judgment Day. His 2 close friends were already in gaming mode, throwing casual insults at each other until the door creaked open. Enter Wang Bing, the broke legend himself. His friends lit up like he'd returned from the dead, and immediately interrogated him about where he'd been. He felt a little awkward, because who wants to admit they're here to beg? But true homies know the struggle. Before he could even finish his sentence, they shoved food in his hands and begged him not to starve himself for a girl who treated him like a walking ATM. Friends practically kicked him out, telling him to go see the girl and not make her wait. They were broke too, but they still handed him cash like it was a funeral offering, hoping he'd return alive. Wang Bing was grateful, but he silently promised that one day, when he was rich, he'd pay back every cent. Flash forward to game prep. He packed his one trusty item, a sapper shovel. Sounds dumb. Not really. That thing could dig, stab, slice, and probably give therapy if needed. But even with 1 foot in the virtual world, he still couldn't ignore his real-world problems. His girlfriend had gone full ghost mode. No calls, no texts. Every time he tried calling, all he got was debt, and a robotic voice reminding him he's irrelevant. Eventually, after 1 million tries, she finally picked up. Her voice was colder than Antarctica. She didn't even ask why he was calling. He just told her he'd be away for a while and hoped they'd meet again. She said nothing about waiting. On the other end, another dude was already sliding into her personal space, casually dropping his hand on her thigh like he paid rent there. This clown had the nerve to ask who called, and she just smirked and said, "Doesn't matter. Damn, even soap operas don't hit this hard." Meanwhile, our hero was completely clueless, still thinking about how to survive the apocalypse, not knowing he was already living one in his love life. Now it was time. Wang Bing activated the game and immediately got transported to what looked like the setting of every zombie movie ever made. Crumbling buildings, eerie silence, and the scent of bad decisions filled the air. He was alone, vulnerable, and confused, but also ready to wreck some undead skulls. Because logically, if it's a post-apocalypse game, there have to be zombies, right? Spoiler alert, there were. A horde of them, right behind some metal bars, just vibing and waiting for someone to become dinner. Wang had 7 days to figure things out, find resources, survive, and maybe cry a little. He quickly realized that I should explore. Sounds cool in theory, but in practice, it's a recipe for trauma. The first thing he remembered was the golden rule. Always keep your shovel ready. Because nothing says apocalypse like smashing zombie heads with military-grade garden tools. Second, always pick the quietest route. Because zombies are like nosy neighbors. Once you get their attention, they never shut up. Third, never, under any circumstances, distract a zombie from its zombie business. That's how you go from main character to background corpse real quick. In one part of the map, the zombies were straight up moaning with energy, while in others they were just pacing like bored retirees. Wang Bing took notes, gripped his shovel, and walked deeper into this pixelated hell with the confidence of a man who'd been betrayed, broke, and had nothing left to lose. The undead here have the hearing of a paranoid grandmother, and the tiniest sound could turn your stealth mission into a bloodbath. But hey, if you're smart, like Wang Bing pretends to be, by like a ninja with rent to pay, follow the rules, and you might just live long enough to loot a few treasures, flex for the scoreboard, and teleport back to reality like nothing happened. Sounds easy, right? Yeah, except there's always that one tiny feeling crawling up your spine that someone's watching. And in Wang Bing's case, it wasn't paranoia. It was something, or someone, stalking him like a predator playing with its food. The creepy part, it didn't move like a zombie. Nah, this thing was smarter, quieter, too deliberate. Maybe it was another player. Maybe it was a new kind of undead with a brain cell. Either way, Wang Bing got the hint. People in this world were sometimes worse than the flesh-eating freaks. Human or zombie, death still had the same end credits. So he did the logical thing, hide like a rat in a flooded basement. And just as he crouched in the shadows, pretending to be a decorative plant, he heard a noise above. With his heart pounding like a broken washing machine, he looked up, expecting some horror movie jump scare. Instead, fish, flying fish, not even kidding. A bunch of scaly nightmares zoomed past him, and standing there in the dark was what looked like a shadowy figure straight out of a fever dream. For a second, he thought it was a fishman. Yeah, like one of those half-human, half-sushi abominations. His soul did a backflip, thinking this was game over. But plot twist, it was a girl, a pretty one, a deadly one, the type who could threaten you and still look good doing it. She didn't come to flirt. She came to rob. Hand over your supplies or die, she basically said, with the enthusiasm of someone ready to slice throats for ramen. Suddenly, this cute little apocalypse turned into a mafia deal gone wrong. She had guns. She had the crazy eyes. And she wasn't kidding. Wang Bing tried to process the situation, but all he got was a countdown and a shovel with her name on it. Naturally, our boy didn't hit her first. He's classy, remember? But when she made the first move and actually dared to rob him, all bets were off. This wasn't your average high school fight behind the lockers. This was warfare in a broken world. And the virtual reality didn't pull punches. Here, strength could be scanned, stats could be read like barcodes, and weak points flashed like tutorial hints. She studied him like a menu item, die with dignity or negotiate like a rat with a pocket full of jerky. He chose option C, survival by canned meat. He told her they could share supplies. At the mention of meat, her hunger turned into full-on psychosis. Her eyes glowed, her mouth watered. If this wasn't virtual, you'd think she was a starving gremlin. But instead of freaking out, Wang Bing went for his backup weapon, a stun device. Zapped her like a fly. She dropped, twitching like a malfunctioning doll. Could she blame him? You don't rob someone and expect a cookie, but he wasn't a total savage. He understood she was desperate, just like him, so he pulled out water, food, and even a little dagger as a peace offering. She didn't trust easily, but her stomach did. The food wasn't expired, a miracle, and the water didn't smell like regret. She gobbled it like a raccoon in a dumpster, and for a moment, forgot she was the antagonist. Problem? In this game, every time he caught a breath, the universe decided to punch him again. He barely had time to stretch when karma struck back. This time, in the form of two muscle, heads straight out of a villain's starter pack. Apparently, his earlier fight attracted more attention than a fire alarm in a school. These guys weren't hungry, they were greedy. They wanted his gear, his supplies, maybe even his shoes. One had a bat, the other had eyes like he'd eaten his own conscience. They closed in, 3 against 1, like bullies on a lunch break. And as usual, Wang Bing was the main course. One of them even joked about eating him. Honestly, if sarcasm could kill, they'd already be dead. But Wang Bing wasn't going out like a punk with a stun gun in one hand and a blade in the other. He slashed, stabbed, and electrocuted his way out like a discount anime protagonist. Blood flew, not his. The attackers stumbled back, crying about small wounds like toddlers with paper cuts. Because in this hellish world, blood meant attention, and attention meant zombies. As the scent of crimson filled the air, the undead started sniffing like it was dinner time. Just as he thought things were calming down, karma circled back again with a vengeance. The same jackals he'd fought earlier tracked him down, because apparently the game comes with a stalker feature. This time, they had plans. One wanted to rip off his arm like a drumstick. The other pretended to be diplomatic, claiming they wouldn't hurt him. Yeah, right, one of them claimed to be part of a gang called the Tiger's Heads. Just as the vibes turned from mild threat to organ-harvesting cult, our previously rescued, brick-slinging girl reappeared like Karma's little sister with anger issues. Now, don't get it twisted. She didn't come running because she cared. No, her original plan was to sit back and enjoy the live performance. How fast will this greenhorn die? Then she looked down at the bit of food Wang Bing given her earlier, and apparently, gratitude comes with a side of murder assistance. The tiger boss kept monologuing like a low-budget villain, enjoying the suspense, unaware his team was about to be turned into pavement toppings. Out of nowhere, sir! One guy went down like a sack of meat, brick painting modern art around his skull. The girl didn't stop at one. She moved like a ballerina raised by mercenaries, weaving between giants and stabbing them like it was a sport. She was small, sure, but her fists didn't care. These weren't average thugs, they were muscle heads on steroids. Yet somehow, this slip of a girl was dismantling them with poetic violence. And when she shouted to Wang Bing for her dagger, there was no time for bromance or doubt. In this world, it was either stab or be chewed on. Wang barely had time to react when she jammed the dagger straight through one thug's throat. Blood sprayed. No witty comebacks, no slow motion, just raw, ugly reality. Even with all their tough guy bravado, the Tiger Head gang learned that nothing stands a chance against sharp steel and a girl with nothing to lose. The boss stepped forward like he still had a chance. Bad call. His squad panicked and scattered, terrified of becoming kebabs. Logic kicked in, chase them down and prevent revenge later. But the girl stopped him. Not because she was tired, because the smell of blood had summoned the real problem. The dead were coming, and they weren't picky eaters. As the moans of the undead crept closer, the two young warriors ran into the shadows, barely avoiding becoming dinner specials. Covered in sweat and panic, Wang Bing collapsed in relief, finally catching his breath. He turned to thank the girl, expecting some mutual appreciation. But nah. She pointed her dagger at him again, dead serious. Stand still. Girls' trust issues could fill an encyclopedia, but in this world, paranoia was a survival skill. She wasn't crazy, just traumatized and heavily armed. Wang Bing, to his credit, didn't panic. He slowly put down his stun gun, trying to show he wasn't a threat. But yeah, she clearly hadn't forgiven him for zapping her earlier like a housefly. He tried again to negotiate peace, explaining that if they teamed up, she'd get way more food. And not just snacks. He pulled out the Gourmet Apocalypse Edition jerky, canned meat, water. Her eyes widened like she was staring at a treasure chest. It was enough to make her drool and tear up at the same time. Wang Bing, mentally high-fived himself for overpacking. He promised that if she helped him survive these cursed 7 days, he'd split everything down the middle. Her hunger melted into awe. This much food, for her, in this garbage fire of a world. It was like meeting a rich guy who brought instant noodles instead of roses. She didn't even ask his name, but she was definitely curious now. To her, he looked like a food bank millionaire. The young man, not wanting to push his luck, kept it cool. They just needed to survive a week. After that, if fate allowed, he'd give her even more. Funny thing was, before the food, she planned to kill him. But generosity had a strange way of changing plans. And now she was offering a truce. Local rules applied: no entering a girl's private space without permission. He'd get his own room and could cry, plan, or sleep in peace. They officially introduced themselves. Well, sort of. He shared his name. She snorted and looked away like he just told her he was a magician. But Wang Bing wasn't offended. Her sass was part of the apocalypse charm. His room was surprisingly decent. He rummaged through drawers like a bargain hunter and, jackpot, jewelry boxes. He hoped they were real. He imagined selling them in the real world, bathing in money, marrying the school goddess, and living in obnoxious luxury. But first, he needed to calm the hell down and stick to the plan. Still, one question lingered. Did this stuff belong to Shia? He didn't want to offend her by pawing through her things, so he decided to ask. But just as he left his room to find her, he froze. There she was, standing with her back to him, hair flowing, shadowy lighting. The whole vibe screamed, "Do not disturb." And then he realized he'd been staring hard, like a certified creep. Embarrassed, he slapped his hands over his face and scurried back to his room like a guilty hamster. Behind the door, Shia was still talking. About what? Who knows? But at this point, Wang Bing was too flustered to find out. Comment Wang Bing, and you will get the part 2 of this manhwa. Since you stayed this far, why not subscribe and be a good boy? For me, I will bless you with a girlfriend in exchange for free. I will meet you in the next video.